Donald Trump is known for his bold and sometimes shocking ideas. He has proposed buying Greenland from Denmark, building a giant wall along the Mexican border. And now, amid the war in the Middle East, he has set his sights on an even crazier goal: the Gaza Strip. Mr. Trump not only wants to rebuild this land, but also has the ambition to turn it into an American land, a Dubai-style tourist paradise with luxurious resorts on the Mediterranean coast. But the question is, can an area filled with bombs, war, and conflict for decades become a tourist paradise, as Mr. Donald Trump said? What does Gaza have that the U.S. desires? Geographically, Gaza is a small land, but has an extremely important and strategic position. Located on the Mediterranean coast, with a length of about 40 kilometers and a width of 6 to 12 kilometers, depending on the section. Gaza covers a total area of approximately 365 square kilometers and is home to over 2.3 million people, making it one of the most densely populated areas on the planet. Gaza's uniqueness lies not only in its small size, but also in its extremely sensitive location. Its location between Israel and Egypt and its coastline make Gaza an important transit point, both for trade and as a strategic buffer zone in the conflict between Israel and the Arab world. One possible scenario is that Gaza could follow the model of Dubai or Singapore to become a logistics and financial hub, taking advantage of its proximity to the Suez Canal to develop a seaport and commercial center. Because Gaza has white sand, blue sea, and a cool Mediterranean climate in winter. Before the conflict escalated, the area had a number of small resorts catering to locals and tourists from the West Bank. Although most of them have now been destroyed, Gaza could be developed into a resort hub with peace. Gaza's big economic bright spot is the Gaza Marine Gas Field, located about 30 kilometers off the Gaza coast at the bottom of the Mediterranean. The field was discovered in 2000 and is estimated to contain 1.1 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. That's not far off from most Middle Eastern countries, but if exploited, it would still be enough to meet Gaza's energy needs and even export to neighboring countries. Since Israel imposed a blockade on Gaza after Hamas took control of the enclave, the region's economy has collapsed. Unemployment is extremely high, high-rise buildings are leveled, hospitals lack medicine, even basic things like electricity and water are luxuries. In that context, Mr. Trump thinks that this land can become the Miami of the Middle East. Is he confusing a tourist beach with a fierce battlefield? To do this, Mr. Trump's plan, and of course the entire US and Israel, revolve around an extremely bold scenario: moving most of the Palestinian population from Gaza, then turning Gaza into a special economic tourism zone controlled by the US and Israel. The idea may sound far-fetched, but historically, the US has made similar moves in bold ways to control territories. Looking back, there is no shortage of such precedents. The US once annexed Hawaii, turning it from an independent kingdom into a US state through the strategy of pumping money into the sugar industry. Or the Panama Deal. The US helped this country separate from Colombia in the early 20th century in exchange for the right to build and control the Panama Canal for nearly a century. Even Greenland was bought by Mr. Trump for billions of dollars for strategic military and resource reasons. And if Gaza one day belongs to the US, the prospect here could be completely different from the current image. The 40 kilometers Mediterranean coastline will be transformed into a modern urban strip with luxury resorts, 5-star hotels, and expensive marinas for the super rich. An American-style city will be built with skyscrapers, reflective glass, giant shopping malls, and bustling financial districts. Major American corporations such as Apple, Google, and Tesla could set up headquarters here. Turn Gaza into a technology and financial hub that attracts investors from around the world. Expanded ports to accommodate giant merchant ships sailing across the Mediterranean. Turn Gaza into a strategic port, serving as a transit point for goods between Europe, Asia, and Africa. If Gaza were to belong to the United States, it would become a city of luxury and wealth, but no longer belonging to the people who were born there. A bustling version of Dubai, but at the expense of the history, culture, and existence of the Palestinian people as a people with their own land. That beautiful scene would be followed by a human tragedy. Where will the Palestinians go? If the US and Israel succeed in their plan to turn Gaza into a tourist economic hub, it will mean that most Palestinians will have to leave their homeland. But where? That is not an easy question to answer, because no country is really willing to take them. The closest geographical option is Egypt. Egypt has a large area of the Sinai Peninsula which could host Palestinians. In theory, Egypt could establish resettlement areas or even create a new Palestinian region within its territory. But in reality, the Egyptian government has repeatedly rejected this proposal because they are concerned that accepting millions of Palestinians now would cause a lot of instability and create conditions for Hamas to operate on Egyptian soil, directly threatening the security of this country. No one wants their country to be unstable. Another option is Jordan, which already has a large Palestinian population. But Jordan has expressed concern that such a large influx of up to 2 million people would upset the ethnic and political balance in the region. No one forgets the Black September event in 1970 when Jordan's Hussein violently suppressed the Palestine Liberation Organization, and the Palestinians were also very afraid. As for the rich Gulf countries like the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, they have resources and land, but they have never really wanted to accept the Palestinians. These rich guys, diplomatically, always speak out in support of Palestine, but when it comes to immigration, when it comes to concrete actions, they close their borders tighter than anyone, because they fear that their peaceful, wealthy country will be affected. This has been proven in many previous wars when Palestinians had to seek asylum. But most Arab countries refuse to accept large numbers. If all these options fail, the worst-case scenario is that Palestinians will become a people in exile. They will live scattered around the world, just as Jews were scattered for thousands of years before the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Looking at history, the current Palestinian tragedy has many striking similarities to the history of the Jewish exile. For 2,000 years, they did not have a state of their own, were always considered outsiders, had to live in isolated ghettos. Carcasses in Europe were discriminated against, and even suffered severe oppression as happened during World War II. Now, if the US and Israel succeed in their resettlement plan, the Palestinians may face the same fate as the Israelis in the past. They are pushed out of their homeland, forced to live as second-class citizens in other countries, have no political rights, no territory of their own, and are always used by the big powers as pawns in the political chessboard of the Middle East. There is, however, one important distinction. The Jews have a history of exile, but have retained a strong culture and religion, which has inspired the revival of the State of Israel. Meanwhile, the Palestinians, without a state of their own, may gradually dissolve into other nations and lose their national identity over time. The world has objected to this. The forced displacement of millions of Palestinians is no different from the forced displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in 1948 when Israel was established and hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were expelled from their homeland. The United Nations will certainly condemn this strongly, because it would be the largest forced displacement since the mid-20th century, violating numerous international conventions. China and Russia will also not miss the opportunity to criticize the US. They may provide weapons or financial support to Palestinian resistance groups to weaken Western influence in the Middle East. As for the Arab countries, the reaction will be very complicated. Although they always support Palestine in theory and in speech, but in reality, they may tacitly agree with this plan as long as it does not affect their interests. For example, Saudi Arabia could use this opportunity to negotiate favorable deals with the US and Israel by tacitly supporting them. Suppose everything goes as Donald Trump wants and Gaza does become a special financial tourism zone. Who will benefit? The simple answer is American and Israeli investors and a few regional billionaires. Gaza will no longer be Palestinian, but a special zone controlled by big financial corporations, a new Las Vegas with restaurants and hotels, but no place for the local people. But what are the chances of this plan becoming a reality? If Hamas still exists, if the Palestinians refuse to leave, if the Arab world continues to oppose it, then this is just a pipe dream for the US. Or worse, an excuse to consolidate America's presence in the Middle East. Whoever controls the land controls history. The Palestinians are now at risk of losing their homeland, but it is also from the most dire of circumstances that peoples can find a way to survive. Will Palestine lose its ancient civilizations, or will it survive to write its own story? What is your opinion on this issue? Goodbye and see you again.